Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's episode, spring's coming up and we're going to be talking about the basics of a pot call and how to use it. We're going to talk about the different types and how to take care of it, how to condition it, how to get the best sound out of each type. Again, most people refer to these as a pot call, but other names they go by slate call, even though there's different types of surfaces. There's not just slate, there's glass, there's aluminum, there's crystal, there's ceramic. Some people will just say pot and peg, even though most people are going to refer to it as a pot and a striker, okay, a pot call. So that's what we're going to be going over today, just the basics of, the basic sounds like the cluck, the yelp, how to purr, and that's basically all you need for you beginners. That'll get you calling in a turkey this year, and again, you're going to get better the more and more you use it. So with all that said, let's jump right in and how to use it. Alright, so let's look at some pots. Here you've got two pot calls. Alright, the pot material, the body of it, these two are both made out of the same type of wood, okay, same laminate, everything. The difference is going to be the calling surfaces, okay. You've got this one over here. This one is glass, this one is slate, okay? It's a perfect example of different calling surfaces. Even though it could be the same type of wood, they'll give you different different sounds. Okay, each pot call has soundboard inside of them. Alright, so let's look closely at this glass call here. You've got a glass calling surface, and inside you'll see this smaller circle. That's another surface, but they call that the soundboard. That soundboard there, it's going to add volume and a little pop to each call. Now you'll hear people talk about pot calls and they're going to refer to them as something over something. They'll either say it's glass over slate, glass over glass, aluminum over glass, slate over slate. And what that means is they're referring to the first one is the top calling surface, which is what you'll play on, and the second one over will be what the soundboard material is made of. Call makers will give different variations, mix these up to get different sounds and different volumes out of the call, and you just apply those for different scenarios in the woods. Okay, now let's talk about the calling surface, and I want to basically divide this up into three sections. You've got like a top third here, the middle, and the bottom third. You're going to see 99% of people are going to call on a pot call, and they're going to use this top third. You can see right there where I've been calling, just like on this glass call. You see how this whole glass surface, you've only got this top little section on the top upper third of the calling surface is scratched to give friction. Because up at that top third, that's where you're going to have the most realistic, the most consistent sounds. That's where it's going to sound most like a turkey. Alright, here's your striker here. Let's talk about how to hold this striker, okay? If you take a look at your hand here, you've got little knuckles, a knuckle here, a knuckle here, a knuckle here on your thumb. You want to try to put this striker on a knuckle where it always comes in contact with a knuckle. You don't really want this thing in the fatty parts of your hand, because the fatty parts of your hand are going to muffle the sound, and they're going to kind of reduce the rasp that you're going to get. It's going to help it sound more like a turkey. So again, you don't hold this striker really like a pencil, like you're writing, like this or this or this. You're going to put the middle finger, you're going to put this right here on that knuckle. You're going to try to put right here on this knuckle as close as you can, and then in your thumb here on the little bendy part. So it's going to look a little something like this. Okay? See how you've got a knuckle to a knuckle, and it's going to sit right there on your thumb. that little bony part of your thumb. Try to keep the wood striker on all the bony parts of your finger. That's just going to help make some rasp. It's just going to allow the sound to travel better out of that striker. Okay? Alright, next, how to hold the pot. Okay, you can look on the back. You're going to see all these holes that are drilled out. That's like your speaker. Okay? All your sound's going to come out of those holes. So you most definitely don't want to hold the body of the pot in your hand like that. You would just muffle most of the sound coming out. You're going to use your fingertips here. Going to hold it just like that, okay? That's how you're going to hold the pot. Okay, next. Now you know how to hold the striker. You don't want your hand laying on the surface, okay? You're going to let the fatty part of your hand here just rest right on the edge, okay? Bring your striker down, and you can see that part of my hand right here, none of it's touching. That fatty part's just resting, okay? Now this is what it's going to look like. Follow me? That's how you're going to hold the pot. That's how you're going to hold the striker. And this is how you're going to be calling. Alright, so now we know how to hold the call, how to hold the striker. Let's start with the most basic turkey sound that we can make. Alright, now let's start with the most basic turkey call that we can make, and that's going to be the cluck. Alright, to make the cluck, we are going to place the striker up at the top, just like this. We're going to apply just a small amount of pressure, and you're just going to pull down. Hear that? It's just going to, the striker's just going to pop. Apply a little bit of pressure down, and just pull down. And the better you get at it, you're going to get more of a pop. You put more pressure, you'll get a little bit louder, and it'll get a little bit more rasp to it. You can kind of angle that striker just a little forward, pull down. And that's it. Simple as that. That's how you make a cluck. Simple cluck. Alright, so now let's talk about a simple yelp. To make a yelp, you're going to simply place this striker up here and basically make either a half moon shape or like a oval, kind of a circle. You're going to make the call, and then you're going to be dragging the striker back. Now, important to remember that your striker is never going to leave the surface of the call. You're not going to ever pick it up. You're going to maintain contact on the calling surface the entire time. So it's going to go something like this. You're going to have a high end and a low end, okay? It's gonna kind of go, it's gonna give a sound like a yee out, yee out, yee out. It's gonna have a rollover. It's gonna go from high to that yee. Y'all kind of hear that? Yelp. And when you do that faster, you're gonna get the sound you're looking for, the hen yelp. Again, notice. The striker never leaves the calling surface, because when you drag back, it doesn't make any sound. Only when there's pressure, you get that friction. Okay? So again, you've got a cluck, and then a yelp. And that's all there is to it. Alright, so now let's talk about doing the PURR on a slate call. Most time you can PURR on both glass and slate calls. The most realistic PURRs are going to come from a slate. Just the type of sound that it makes, it's just going to sound a lot quieter, a lot more muffled on a slate. So either or is fine, but if I had my preference, I would always want to try to PURR on a slate call. Alright, so we've talked about for a CLUCK, a YELP, we've always played up here at that top third of the call. For me personally, purring, I prefer to come down a little bit more towards the center of the pot. The reason is, the more towards the center I get, the less high pitched that sound is. And if you've ever heard turkeys up close purring in the, you know, in the wild or whatever, it's hard to explain, almost guttural. It's real muffled, so you get more realistic sound, in my opinion, purring in the middle. And I'll give you an example. So if you hear up here, it's kind of high pitched, and you go more towards the middle, and this is the sound you're going to get. Hear that difference? Alright, so in my opinion, it sounds better here. So again, this is kind of like a CLUCK, how you're going to PURR. Again, you're just going to simply put your striker with some pressure straight up and down kind of on your calling surface. And instead of that pop like with the CLUCK, you're just going to pull, keep in contact, no pop. See how I'm just pulling this little finger right here, just pulling it straight towards you. That's all you're doing. You're keeping pressure and pulling towards you. It may take some getting used to. It's not hard. It's just going to take a little bit of practice. And when I do the PURRs, I'll just add in a little soft little putt, little clucks like that. When you got birds that are close or hens that are close, in a feeding call, they'll do this when they're just kind of bugging around. It's a good call to use. Okay, let's talk about conditioning of the slate call and the glass call. Early in the morning, I will say, you can use both. But early in the morning, if I have a choice, I prefer to use the glass call. The reason for that is that the slate call will absorb moisture. And when it absorbs moisture, that striker on there, it can slip. And so you don't got no bite. The striker to the calling surface doesn't have any bite, and it'll slip and it doesn't sound good. So there is one way to combat that. If you don't have a glass call, but anyway, we'll get to that in just 1 second. So let's talk about the glass call and how you condition it. If it's in the morning and there's some moisture, or you pull out a glass call at any time and your striker is slipping and it's not making good grip on there so you can call, what they sell is you can use some sandpaper, but most time calls will come with a conditioning stone. So all you want to do is right here, take your stone where it's roughed out, and you're just gonna, you're not putting a whole lot of pressure, you're not digging in deep, just just enough to rough it up. So that way when your striker is on there, now it's got some grip. Alright, if your striker is slipping, even after you've done this and conditioned your glass surface, all you want to do is simply, you can get some 3Ms of Scotch-Brite. All right, green or brown, either one works. You can find it at the dollar store, you can find it at Walmart, anywhere, and just get you some 3M green Scotch-Brite. And all you're going to do is simply put your tip of your striker in there and just rough it up. Don't use sandpaper, it can be too rough, but this seems to be perfect amount, and it just roughs it up just enough so that that striker has grip and can grab that calling surface so that it sounds good. Alright, let's go back to the slate. What you want to do on a slate, you want to use that same Scotch-Brite. If you're using a slate, that's all you have at any time, especially early in the mornings. There's a lot of moisture. This thing it'll absorb that moisture, and it's almost like you can't get a good sound out of it. So take that same 3M, and again, you're not bearing down. It doesn't take much. Just simply scratch the whole. You can scratch the whole surface of a slate because you can play it anywhere you want, as long as it's kind of in that upper third. You just kind of rough it up just a little bit. And it should sound pretty good. Alright, one last thing to get the moisture out of your slate. I would save this one for last. Try not to use this as much as, to try this trick as much as you can. Again, try the 3M, the Scotch-Brite, that usually works. But you can take a little lighter here, and you got to be careful. Don't hold this on there too long. You're not really going to burn the slate, but the wood around it or that heat can damage it. If you leave heat around the edges, there's glue that's holding that surface to the wood, and you don't want to loosen that up. So it doesn't take much. You can light this lighter right here and just simply just run it around. If you see any moisture, you'll watch it come out as you just run that lighter over. And there again, doesn't take much. Don't hold it on there long. And again, I prefer just using that 3M. Try that first. But if all else fails, you can try this, and that'll take any moisture out of that slate. And when it's good and dry like that, man, that thing grips good, and it calls really good. Alright, that's how you're going to condition your slate, glass, crystal. That's how you're going to condition those and keep up with your strikers and your calling surface. Alright. Okay guys, so that does it for this episode. We've discussed like the different types of pot calls, different calling surfaces, what they're made out of. We went over how to cluck, we went over how to yelp, how to purr. That's the basics. That's all you need to know to call in a gobbler this spring. And just remember, you know, take it slow. You don't have to get fancy, no matter how good of a caller you are. If that gobbler does not want to come to you that day, doesn't matter how good you are, he's not coming. Okay, woodsman, you can never replace woodsmanship. But these basics will get you started. I killed my first turkey just knowing basically how to cluck. And I could yelp, but it probably wasn't the best sounding. But I killed a bird. So anyway, if I didn't go over something and you have any questions, drop a comment below. I'll get back to you and answer it as best I can. But yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you want to see more, give it a like, subscribe. But other than that, good luck to y'all guys. Hope y'all bust one this spring.